Well, it's official. The new designs for Team RWBY's here. I'm not a fan of these. I really don't like them, but hey, there couldn't be any worse designs than what this looks like for the characters, am I right? Holy shit! Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So, RWBY Volume 7, Chapter 3 is out to the public, so it is time to go over the chapter, review it, and then sum up my overall thoughts on this chapter. So, this is actually about the Ace Ops, showing off professional huntsmen at their finest. So we finally get to see more professional huntsmen actually do work, and I'll give them props. They definitely did make some good professional huntsmen for a change. But before we get into all of that, of course, the characters did get their new wardrobes as well as weapon modifications. Well, at least some of them got weapon modifications. Not everybody exactly. I mean, unless they're going to show it down the road. But as you can tell, the characters are excited for their new designs. They're excited for the new outfits and everything. And, we're going to go over that right now first before we get into anything, because that's the big thing. That's the big note here of this chapter. So as you see every character, they're excited to get everything, weapon modifications, their new outfits, and I gotta say this. Okay, let's start with RWBY. First thing to note, her hair. It literally looks like Cameron Diaz from There's Something About Mary. Whenever she goes to Ben Stiller's place and he has that, hair gel, so we'll call it. And she puts it in her hair and then it just like freezes up that big bit of her hair, just makes it all stiff and everything. Yeah, that's what RWBY's hair looks like. It's like she was trying to model after Cameron Diaz. It's like that's what the designers were going for some reason. I don't know why they came up with this for her hair. I don't like it. I like her old hairstyle. I don't really like this. I don't think it looks good. I don't think it suits RWBY personally, but that's my opinion. Overall, I think that the original design for RWBY's character is still, to this very day, the best one. I like it the best. I like the mesh of red and black. Those are my favorite colors, and I think that they did very well with RWBY's original design. The Volume 4 through 6 design, it's okay. I don't like the white addition to it. I think that the red and black was fine the way it was, but hey, you know what? It's not the worst design in my opinion. I do think that this one is, but I will at least say they did have a nod to Volume 3 with RWBY pogoing off of the ship, so I'll give them that. Her weapon modification was that her scythe can just switch sides. I don't really see any relevance to that. Considering her style allowed her to just throw her scythe around in any direction, I don't really see why they needed to have a modification as to where her scythe actually needed to switch sides. I don't see the point in that. I think it's actually kind of useless, to be honest with you. It really doesn't make any sense. Considering that she has swung it around countless times, I mean, go back to the Red trailer, you'll see that this is just kind of a pointless upgrade. I don't really see it as an upgrade. I just see it as, oh, look, you can twirl your scythe to the other side. Hooray. I don't see how this was actually relevant for an upgrade. I was hoping maybe something like a better heavy sniper or something of that sort. I really just don't see the point in this. I mean, there's something also to note here, though, that I thought was kind of cool. Now, there's something about this image right here you may notice. In the scene when RWBY clicks the button for her scythe to switch ends, you'll notice that on her ammo bag, there is a dog. This is a reference to Zwei. Gotta love that. I actually kind of like that little nod there. So, good old reference to Zwei. So here's what I have to say about that. Hashtag good boy Zwei. Yeah. Gotta love you, Zwei. I miss Zwei so much. Zwei was such an awesome dog. I swear he's super dog. But love Zwei. Hashtag good boy Zwei for certain. So, got to love Zwei. Now, thing is, whenever it comes to the animations as well, which we're going to get into more of the animations in a bit, one thing is that, I guess, with this switching of her scythe to the sides, though, is that, considering that with Monty's animations, you actually did see the emphasis on the weapon as well as the model's movement, but with this, they just kind of do twirls, like little lines, And it doesn't really put emphasis on the weapon, so I guess that's the reason why they did it, but I just don't find it too relevant at all whatsoever. Now, go on to Weiss. Weiss just reminds me of Artoria, and how did she get that much hair? I mean, seriously, she didn't have this much hair to be able to do that. I mean, did she take ruby strands of hair and then Blake's and then put them in her hair, combine them? I mean, I don't understand how she got that much hair. But hey, you know what? Whatever, right? I mean, if anyone got the best design out of Team RWBY, I still have to say it's Weiss. I still like her older ones better, but hey, you know. And then there's Blake. Okay, so Blake, I'm going to say this right now. Her hair looks like a mop head. It looks like a mop head, and her head looks just too big. The ears are definitely too big. It's like her head and ears just grew in size. It's so weird, and it's just something really strange to point out. I like her older designs. This is definitely not my favorite. Also, she has way too many zippers, I think, on her design. I mean, Bucciarati called and he said he wants his zippers back because there's just so many of them. It's kind of redundant. I don't know why there's so many zippers on her outfit. But then again, everybody has like all the belts for some reason. All the belts in all of Remnant are being stolen by Team RWBY. I mean, seriously, if you look at their designs, they have all the belts. And then when it comes to Blake, what's her weapon modification? Just they put the blade back together, and it's just okay. I was expecting maybe something a little more, but then again, we saw this in the trailer, so there's not much there. But when you look at it, you would think that they would have maybe upgraded it a bit more. So just putting the blade back together, it's almost as if it's just like they really were like, oh, you broke your weapon. Well, here, let's put it back together. And it just, yeah, it's not really that great looking. Yang, there's not really much to say about Yang in terms of her design, really. It's just, Yang doesn't look any different realistically, and she's got that weird leg thing that Vernal had on her pants. I don't like that at all. And, she has an upgrade to her weapon, though, which is actually allowing her to put detonatable mines that are made of dust on the Grim. So whenever she does this to her targets, she can do that and blow them up whenever. Then there is JNR. Now, here's what I have to say. I like Ren. He looks pretty alright. I really like Nora's design. I think she got the best out of the three. It looks like something they took from Kingdom Hearts. I mean, it really does. It just looks like a Kingdom Hearts design. But there's that, and then just Jean. Oh, dear God. Your hair, it's the worst. Jean got the worst. It couldn't be more of a self-insert. Seriously, it looks terrible. Nora didn't get an upgrade to her weapon, so at least that we know of, so her weapon is still the same as it's been. Then when it comes to Ren, the good thing about Ren is I think this is better for him that he can actually shoot the blades out at enemies, so I'll give him that. So when they're attacking the Grim, he shoots out the blades and they strike into the enemy. Jean, apparently he has become more like Link from Legend of Zelda, if anything, because he's got that shield that can allow him to glide now, which is weird. And not only can it do that, but at the same time, it is able to have projection like an attack. So that's something. I mean, Jean got a little bit of something, but I still think, all in all, he probably got the worst out of the weapon upgrades. And then, of course, they do bring up one thing that I wanted to mention before they go into the mines. RWBY was actually freezing despite having her aura. Weiss then actually brings up the fact that people can still die even if they have aura, because the cold of Atlas has still frozen people to death. So apparently temperatures can affect those even if they have aura. So that is an interesting thing to learn because, well, we never knew anything about that before, so that's something new. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up here before they go into the mines, this is good. Yang does bring up the fact that RWBY lied and that should they be lying to Ironwood. I'll give you credit, Yang. At least you brought that up because, as I stated in last week's review, makes her and Crow look very hypocritical that they would not catch RWBY on her lie. I mean, I still think they should have done it in front of Ironwood, but, of course, that's when Blake has to go on to say that, she questions trusting Ironwood. Really, I mean, he's trusting them with Atlas and trying to protect it, I would think that they would do the same. He's not seeming to hide anything from them. You would think that the best thing to do in this scenario, which, when you think about alliances and how they work upon trust. So you would think that Team RWBY would trust him, and yeah, apparently Blake doesn't feel that it's the best idea, and Weiss also feels the same about this. I was quite shocked that Weiss would side more with Blake's idea of not knowing to trust him yet, because he may not be reliable. I think that's a bit strange considering that he's putting their trust in them, and they are helping him, of course. But when it comes to alliances, the big thing about that is trust. It's like friendships, alliances, whatever it may be, it's all built upon trust. If you don't have trust, or if you even tell half of the truth, you're still not telling the whole truth, which, if it's found out or discovered, well, that'll break trust and issues will occur from that. And one thing I also did like is that Oscar did try to bring this up with RWBY as well, saying that, was this really a good idea that we didn't tell Ironwood about Jin and Ozpin's secrets and all of that? So I have to give credit where credit is due, because it seems that, they knew, well, lying was not the best idea, and it certainly wasn't, and who knows, this could have repercussions in the future. There could be consequences from this. RWBY's move there was not a good one, and basically, she just comes up with one excuse out of this, and the excuse really more or less is just that, well, we'll tell them eventually, but until we know what it's like to go through what he's going through, yeah. RWBY, this is bad. This is the one thing that I have an issue with RWBY here is that she is blindly following Ozpin's lead, and I don't like that, because this is the one problem that all the followers had beforehand. I mean, look at Crow. He dedicated himself to Ozpin, and he had believed everything blindly that Ozpin had told him. And then, of course, what happened after that? Whenever he found out the truth, of course, all the trust would be broken after that. So here RWBY is doing the exact same thing that Ozpin's been doing, and apparently, I guess, she's not going to tell the truth until, I don't know, the same thing pretty much happens that happened with Ozpin. Oh, the consequences there will be terrible if that happens. I can only imagine what would happen between Ironwood and RWBY's group after that. But now, moving on to something interesting they did do. So they did bring up the night vision, because Faunus all have night vision. We learned this back in Volume 1, so of course they were going to have Blake look in the mines to make sure it is secure. So I did actually like this. I thought that was a good throwback to Volume 1, and the reason why they said Blake to do it, because she was small enough to fit through the hole to check for any Grim in the mine. So that's why the other Faunus wasn't used. Now, going into the Ace Ops, because I really wanted to talk about them for a minute in this review. So the Ace Ops are actually based off of Aesop's Fables. So there's that. Clover himself, the leader, is based off of Fisherman's Good Luck. Elm, she is based on the Elm and the Vine. Harriet is based on the hare from the tortoise and the hare. And Marrow is based on the dog and its reflection. So I thought that was kind of cool that they did that with them. And of course, we did get to see some of their semblances and what they can do. Now, of course, watching some of the action sequences, they were pretty cool. Seeing how Marrow himself could actually just kind of stop them, I thought that was kind of cool. And then seeing the super speed from Harriet, I thought that was also something. Now, I did want to say, though, if you notice the way she runs, it's like they took that from Flash. From DC Comics. It's like they took this ability. I mean, they have the electricity running around her as well. So there's that. I don't know, it's kind of like she was a rip-off Flash, essentially, like RWBY's version of the Flash. That's really kind of what I felt like she was, just like a slower version of the Flash, but the Flash nonetheless. But now, there is one thing that I also want to bring up in this chapter that they did try to compare. Now, they tried to compare her speed, her semblance, to RWBY's. Now, one thing that has been going on with RWBY semblance, many people get confused over RWBY semblance. RWBY semblance is not just speed. Speed is one of the traits of the semblance, but it is not exactly what her semblance is. Which, of course, it seems like the writers were very confused with this, considering that RWBY seemed like she was confused because she is talking about how it was just like her with her speed. But there's more to her semblance than that, so let's get into that real fast. So going back to Volume 1, you see the speed that RWBY does perform. So if you go back to the Red trailer, you will see this very well in action. You'll see it throughout Volume 1 as well. And then, of course, in Volume 2, you see that she turns into rose petals, and during the food fight, for example, you will see that she created a gust of wind, and of course it blew everyone away. And Ozpin even mentioned back in Volume 2 that whenever they were chasing after Roman, they knew that she was there because of the rose petals. Then when you go to Volume 4, at least the trailer that is, you will see that her semblance, she splits into 3 different parts, showing the evolution of her semblance and what more she can do with it over time. But the thing is that she reforms from the petals back into herself once she is going out of her petals back to being herself again. So really, if anything, the writers seem like they're confused on what her semblance actually is whenever her semblance is turning into petals, being able to use a lot of speed as well as creating storms out of this, like kind of little petal storms essentially, not anything like huge, like a big actual storm, but you get my point. And then of course Yang goes on to say, oh, she's impressed by her speed. Well, wait till she gets to see what she can do with her eyes. Well, here's my question. Why didn't she? I mean, realistically, RWBY could have done things with her eyes during this chapter. I don't know why they didn't have her use her silver eyes. I thought that was kind of weird. But then again, I think the biggest reason for that is so that they could show off the Ace Ops. I think that was the biggest thing. But, considering that she could just kind of eye beam everything that she wants, I don't know why she didn't do it. But hey, either way, at this point, the Grimm are just nothing more than fodder still. So, I mean, one way or another, the Grimm are just going to be made useless rather than seem like an actual threat. So, that's pretty much what happened. So, of course, looking at Clover. Now, Clover, he's somebody I don't trust. I don't like this guy. I feel like he might be a traitor in the future. He just seems too nice. I mean, there's just something off about him to me that makes me feel like he's going to be a traitor in the future. Now, of course, he has a fishing rod, which is based off the Aesop fable he's based off of, and his name is Clover, which, of course, also his semblance is based off of good luck. Now, the thing I'm going to bring up about Crow here, though, is that it seems that they have just forgotten how powerful he actually is supposed to be. Now, if you recall back in Volume 3, it was stated that Crow has strength and speed that are beyond normal levels. He is supposed to be powerful and fast without even the boost of a semblance. He could have just chased down that Geist and killed it very easily. Instead, they made him try to shoot at it. I really was disappointed with what they did with Crow. At this point, I'm just going to start calling him Ben Bronwyn because this is just not Crow. They've nerfed him, and it just doesn't feel like Crow anymore. Now, another thing I wanted to bring up was J&R and the Aesops, about how it seemed like they wanted acceptance from the Aesops despite the fact that they have been fighting Salem's forces for such a long time. I don't know why they feel like they would need, now of all times, acceptance from professional huntsmen. I mean, they fought alongside Crow. So it's weird to me that they feel like they needed acceptance from someone that's professional, considering that they themselves have fought against high-tier threats. I don't know why they feel like they needed acceptance. That was a bit strange to me. I don't know if anybody else felt off about that. But I don't really feel like they needed the acceptance of the Pro Huntsmen when they have, done some incredible feats themselves. So it's a bit strange to me. I don't know why they feel that they needed their acceptance. It was just kind of strange. I don't know if they just look up to them, think they're cool. I mean, of course they think they're cool, but I don't know. It's just a weird thing to me. And then, of course, during the fight itself, there was something I wanted to bring up about the fights. The fights seemed like they were slow paced. Now, they did seem like they were a little faster than what they were within Volume 5 and at the beginning of Volume 6 with the train fight against the Grimm. But the thing is, it just feels like, if anything to me, it feels like they were still very slow here. There were even some moments with Clover, for example, with weird levitating animation again. So the levitation has come back, and that was something I noticed. I was not particularly a fan of that, but the fight was not bad for what it was. I thought it was pretty interesting, and I thought it was good to actually see Pro Huntsman at work. So I'll at least give it that. Now, finally, this guy. I am glad to see what happened to him, considering that I did not care for him and his little political tirade in the beginning. And, I gotta say, with Tyrion, I am liking him more and more as time goes on. I always thought he was kind of interesting in Volume 4, but he's starting to really reach up on the ladder of a character that I really tend to enjoy. And, I hope there's a lot that comes out of Tyrion. I mean, he's going to be the muscle in this volume, but I would like to see more out of him in terms of his backstory and character. I hope that they'll do that. So overall, this chapter, I would say, is a 7. It was okay. I actually liked it more than the first two. Now, let's look at the good and the bad. The pros: actual good huntsmen. I mean, it's about time we finally got some good professional huntsmen after seeing just characters like Crow, for example, just go downhill, or Tweedledee and Tweedleidiot from Volume 6 that were professional huntsmen and just were fodder. So it was good to actually see good professional huntsmen and huntresses in action, so that's good. There's at least praise for that one. Now, in terms of animation, it wasn't bad. It's not the worst that it's been. It's not the best that it's been, but I did notice a couple of issues, like with the levitation whenever they were fighting the Geistgrim, whenever it had actually become merged with all the rock and the dust and everything. There were a couple of moments, like Clover, for example, with him levitating there oddly. There were some of those moments, but it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. It was all right. Now, that could be because of budget. That could be because, how badly the animator's being treated. So I'm not going to harp on that. I understand, and I will give credit to those animators because they definitely deserve credit. So, they're working hard and they're trying their best. So I'll give them that. Now, one thing I have to bring up, Crow. One thing that I didn't bring up until now was that Clover did ask Crow why he liked working alone rather than with a group. And he said it's because he felt better working alone. Here's the thing. We have seen him reminisce in the past about Team Stark and about how great it was. There were good times. And how he seemed to really enjoy being a part of that team. And now he's upset that they're separated. And now he says that he works alone because he found it best that way rather than working with a team. That makes no sense. Crow is just not Crow anymore. I don't like what they're doing with Crow. I really don't. And, at this point, I'm just going to call him Ben Bronwyn because he's been and gone. And, it's pretty much the truth. And, everybody knows that I hate the voice change. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows I hate this, and everybody knows I hate what they did with Vic. And, this doesn't help Crow's character, in my opinion. I really hate this change. And now it just feels like he's out of character as well. It's not just the voice acting, but it just feels like he's out of character, and I really hate it. But a praise I'll at least give is, at least with Ruby, at least people called her out on, saying, was it right to lie, and how she should tell the truth. So at least Yang called her out on that, and Oscar as well. So I gotta give props to that. That was a plus to this. At least that was brought up, which I think should have been brought up last chapter, but at least it was brought up nonetheless. And maybe Ruby will do the right thing and tell the truth eventually, or there might be some consequences to that. But anyways, I'll be back again on Tuesday. Let me know what you think about this entire chapter down below. And thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy it, the video with a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and follow me on Discord. The link is in the description down below. But anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today, and remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.